live. Sure, everybody's excited to have some interaction with the Grays. Good day, everybody. I'm here with Xen and CoonDawg. CoonDawg, finally get to see what you look like. Except
Absolutely.
you're not in a little tiny profile picture, you know.
Absolutely, gents. It's a pleasure to be on stream, and yeah, no, it's I'm a real person. I'm not AI,
You're not
so
AI.
yeah,
How do we know
it's
you're not AI?
that's a pleasure to finally be on stream with you guys properly.
Yeah. Zen, you doing good?
Yep, doing good. Just another day working, taking a little break from work, doing the stream with you guys. Happy to have CoonDawg on. Definitely excited to maybe have a conversation what got CoonDawg into crypto, maybe what got CoonDawg into pTGC and UFO, what maybe attracted him to pTGC and UFO, how you found it, how you found PulseChain, and maybe just see where the conversation goes from there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us how you got started in crypto and how you ended up into the Grays.
Yes, I'll give you a bit of backdrop of my story and
Yeah.
just the whole crypto investing. And so I, as you know, I live in Sydney, Australia. So I'm on the other side of the globe. So it's it's always a challenge to try and tee things up with people from the States, because we're literally on the opposite timing for everything.
You are
And
very far away.
yeah, and that's included with, just with anything sort of research wise, and lining things up. Australia's always, it's the opposite timing, and yeah, it just makes it a little bit more difficult and challenging, but that's okay. There's quite a few Australians that are starting to get into investing in cryptocurrency, which looks like a good thing, because that's half the reason why I got into it initially, is that over here, I guess, it actually is quite difficult, on a day-to-day to, if you've got a day job or whatever, to actually try and get ahead a little bit, with just with life, because we do have so many restrictions over here in terms of the government and how much they sort of tax the common worker, so the blue collar worker, and everything else like that. So I got into cryptocurrency because I was quite understanding of the stock market and everything else. But what really attracted me to crypto in 2020 was when I first initially sort of got into it, was the whole idea of Bitcoin, and what it meant as a store of value, as a hedge against the current financial system, and just really wanting to deep dive into that. And that's kind of what attracted me into cryptocurrency initially, which is what I think attracts most of us into cryptocurrency initially. I think it's the fact that you think that how does a blue collar worker who, say, doesn't run his own business, isn't hugely successful like that, how do they sort of get ahead if they're just doing and relying on their 9 to 5? For me at the time, that's where it was. Currently now I do run my own business and everything else, but at the time, blue collar worker, and it was like, how is this possible? But then when you get into cryptocurrency, you kind of realize sort of quickly, that because it's such an early sort of class of investing, it has the early elements to it, which is, there's just, it's the Wild West, and there's no control, sort of centralized control over what assets are actually launched that people can invest in, and the pitfalls that come with cryptocurrency. As we all know, there's probably 99% of cryptocurrencies out there are pretty much scams, and and it's very hard, very difficult, especially these days with how many cryptocurrencies are out there now. There's I don't know what the figures are. There's probably 5,000-10,000 that get launched every day. So to find actual real investments where you're comfortable parking your really hard-earned capital or financial energy into an asset that has sound credentials and just mechanics and how it operates, leading into pTGC and UFO, it's very difficult. It's a diamond in the rough. But before that, so I got into crypto in 2020/2021, invested then and really started to listen to the Richard Hart streams. And I really sort of took a liking to what he was saying and really sort of, aligned with everything he was talking about, because I was going through my own initiation into crypto at the time. I was finding the pitfalls. I was getting, there was a time where my wallet got hacked, it got drained. And, I would jump into projects which would just rug within, 2 to 3 days. And there'd be other ones which you'd jump into with a small amount that would slow bleed over time. And it's like, well, I got into this space for a particular reason, but it just seems like there are, so many potholes or pitfalls that you can jump in, that you end up getting sucked into that it's very hard to steer away from. And that's where I did end up purchasing Hex, but I didn't buy it from the inception. I sort of bought it from, and I invested into it at around 1 cent, and it ran from 1 cent up to about 50 cents on that last bull run. So yeah, so that was my sort of that was the time that I really started investing into cryptocurrency. And just like everyone else, I was an initial investor into PulseChain. I sacrificed X amount of dollars, and became a real believer in what Richard Hart had to say, his ideas, his thoughts, what he believed in, and here we are today. So that's just the background of my initial sort of jumping into it. And I guess my background personally, so I'm in the property development and construction industry. So my background is that I'm a development manager. So in the outside world, I deliver projects primarily for hospitals, so hospital redevelopments. And I guess cryptocurrency, I was into the stock market as well, sort of dabbling in shares and stuff before 2020 to 2021. But cryptocurrency really just took my attention because of the whole, understanding and what Bitcoin actually stood for as a currency, as a store of value, and, just those key points that people look at for, investing into Bitcoin, and then realizing that really they should, once they purchase it, they should never ever sell it. And it should be something they treat as say, property, where once you purchase property, really your last goal is to sell that property. And what you should do is build a portfolio of, investments, that you should then just try and leverage off. If you ever have to, you just leverage off those by borrowing against them, and you never really sell them, because they're assets that will just keep growing for you, into the future. So that's how I now see Bitcoin as, that store of value, that if you purchase Bitcoin, you just make sure that you hold on to that, and you just never sell it. And if you ever need to, you just borrow against it. And now we're seeing that the banks are starting allowing this to happen, especially in the States. So yeah, that's quite an exciting thing.
Yeah, but I have a few things to chime in on that. I tried to keep track of them in my head so I didn't have to interrupt. The first thing was I think that story of how you got into cryptocurrency and that journey that you kind of went through is very similar with a lot of people, right? People end up in cryptocurrency to invest. And then when they end up here, they start looking around like, hey, I know Bitcoin's been a great investment. I know Ethereum's been a great investment. Let me kind of see what other products are a little bit less value, a little bit newer, a little bit cheaper as far as market cap goes, or, just price appreciation goes. Obviously, newer, um, younger, not super large currencies can produce more X's, and that's interesting to people. But when you actually start going into it, you really start to realize very quickly that 99.9% of things out there fail. And this isn't as much in other investments, right? When you put money into property, it doesn't fail. When you put money into like diversified stocks, they don't necessarily fail. So it's almost like these are a bunch of startup businesses. And you're going into these startup businesses without doing any due diligence on the person actually behind the business. And 99% of them, the main goal of that business is to actually get the valuable assets out of your wallet into their wallet. And it's super sad. One of
Yeah,
my goals on PulseChain, because I don't know of a crazy amount of influencers actually, and I don't consider myself an influencer, but I'm hoping I can just help with education on this idea. Trying to guide people to the actual assets that are going to protect them, not to the things that are going to make the influencers technically rich. Because a lot of people don't realize the people that are preaching what products to get into are being paid by these products, or they just want the product to go up so they can put their tokens back into the liquidity pools and get your valuable assets out. So one of my missions with pTGC and UFO is when value starts flowing into PulseChain is to actually take these users and show them good sustainable systems that have economics built into it, APY built into it, deflation built into it, but still have the abilities to offer great price appreciation. Because a lot of people will give up the most important like checklist boxes for the price appreciation because a lot of the things that have the boxes checked have already gone up so much. And this is what I think PulseChain really gives us the opportunity to do is get people into an asset that actually checks a lot of the boxes for the user, which there is risk, right? The risk of very little of adoption of PulseChain, but the reward here is still so massive.
yeah, absolutely, Zen. I couldn't agree more. I think the opportunity, you're saying the opportunity here on PulseChain and the opportunity with pTGC and UFO is still so massive.
Yeah, you look at, I kind of even made a tweet about this, something I wanted to talk about in the stream, so it just kind of naturally came up, is risk to reward ratio in life, right? Like everything you do, there's a risk to reward ratio. When you go get a new job, when you go date a new girl, when you go start your own business, when you start your own business, you're risking money usually. If that's $20,000, $100,000, 500,000, there's a risk to reward ratio there going on. And with pTGC and UFO on PulseChain, and this is for people that are currently even in PulseChain right now, or like friends and family we might even have going into the future, even once PulseChain starts moving, there's that risk to reward ratio that we're kind of checking with ourselves. But I can't think of a scenario in the world or a scenario in cryptocurrency, a scenario in business where you can take a $10,000 investment, like let's say into pTGC, and pTGC can very easily 100x, very easily with the success of PulseChain, with the success. So you can very easily, also very difficultly, like it's not going to just happen. There is some key features that have to happen, I believe, regarding Richard, but I do think it's in the card just due to his past. $10,000 into $1 million in pTGC in a system that actually has liquidity backing it, with a strong community, with deflationary tokenomics, so scarce supply with every transaction, and something that's paying you APY. So after it does this revaluation, you're actually earning additional income off of that investment. You don't even actually need to tap into that investment to help start changing your family's life. And just like you were kind of talking about with Bitcoin, is a lot of people in the world will save money, right? You work your job and you're saving and you're saving. And a lot of people are like just saving in their checking or in their savings account in the bank, in their fiat currency. And a lot of people don't realize their fiat currency isn't a savings currency, it's a transactional currency. You're actually not supposed to save in it at all. So I think a lot of people are starting to understand, especially with the internet and people able to educate themselves, not just through people, but through YouTube, etc., is more and more people are actually realizing like, hey, when you save money from your paycheck, it doesn't make sense to save it in the fiat currency. You need to be taking this into investment assets, if that's property or if that's, diversified stock accounts, or if you want to go into the more riskier, high risk, high reward side, like we were just kind of talking about, possibly 100x, possibly more, you can come into assets like pTGC and UFO. And the only thing left, I think, that needs to really change in the mindset of a lot of these people's heads is if you find the right products, the best thing you can do is continue to hold that asset as it appreciates. Just like if you held Bitcoin for more than 2 years, you held it for 5, you held it for 10, you held it for 15. A lot of those people who held on, they don't have any real reason to sell that Bitcoin. Yeah, I think they're living off of it. Yeah, maybe they're diversifying a little bit. But for the most part, they know they hold the best store of value that actually exists. And they know that that's going to appreciate faster than a lot of the other real world investments. So if PTDC and UFO, if PulseChain can actually turn into these things too, if you turn $10,000 into $1 million and you believe that we're still in the somewhat early stages of PulseChain and the blockchain, that million on just a 2x can now be 2 million. On just 5x, that's now 5 million. And now you're earning APY in a deflationary system on a $5 million bag because you had delayed gratification in an investment.
Yeah, can I just add there, Zen, as well? Like, it's very hard for people to see the forest through the trees, especially when you're on or you're in a asset or you're invested in an ecosystem at its inception. So just taking a step back, that's PulseChain. To see the forest through the trees and the conviction that this layer 1 blockchain is actually going to rival the tier 1s of layer 1 blockchain, in the future. And then when you dive into it a little bit further and you find a sub ecosystem like pTGC and UFO, it's very hard for people to see the forest through the trees, that these are actually the diamonds in the rough that are going to be standing the test of time as multi-cycle assets. So, and this is probably why, the early investors into say Bitcoin, with that story where that gentleman had no idea what it was and he sold his 40,000 Bitcoin for a pizza. Or you have stories of people getting into Ethereum at 50 cents and then they sold it on a 5x or a 10x, and they just had no idea what they were holding, and they didn't really have that foresight to see the forest through the trees.
So what's interesting about that though is at one point is Bitcoin, and this was kind of always goes back to at one point Bitcoin was advertised as a transactional currency. It was very much being pushed to people as being something that you should transact with. That was actually the worst thing you should do with it. You should have actually just used it as your savings account and let it appreciate over time due to the scarcity of those assets. But what's super cool is like Bitcoin is very scarce, right? It's very scarce. It's been out but it's not as scarce as people believe, right? Like the people who actually get to mine it have to sell it and put that back on the chart, which is constant negative demand on the protocol. You're constantly giving out tokens that actually were never purchased, and they don't even have to own Bitcoin to get those tokens. So there's a lot of things in the last 10 years by studying what blockchain has become that it is great for doing transactions. I think that's not where fiat actually had a huge issue. I think a lot of people thought that was the big issue because they wanted to transact more, peer-to-peer without government involved. And I completely understand that. That is our right. We should be able to do that if we don't want to. But what it really stood out as was a store of value system. And I think that's a lot of knowledge that we have moving forward is if you can find the systems that have utility, a reason to exist, demand flowing into it, like PulseX, like Pulse, like I do believe Hex will get back. And you have supply control, if that's deflation, if that's stagnant, but you do have the consistent demand, the upside potential of these products as far as long-term store of value investments go outweighs like any business that you can even create.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just not wanting to get right into the weeds of pTGC and UFO at the moment, but we can do that a little bit later in the stream. But just the way, if you really understand the way the mechanics work with what you've created here, Xen, Banana, with the two tokens, and understand how it generates income, and then how it rewards its investors, it's the light bulb moment comes on, and you realize that there's actually nothing in the real world that returns this type of investment. Because in the real world, you have a company where you have an exorbitant amount of overheads. So that company needs to generate profits, but then a majority of the profits get absorbed by the company's running costs, overheads, this, that, and the other. Whereas these currencies, this ecosystem that you've created, all of the profits go straight back to the investors and to the system itself to boost it up even more. And I, to tell you the truth, I remember our initial discussion, Xen, on this, probably I first started talking to you about 9 months ago, almost a year ago now. And the light bulb moment came on for me when I was trying to compare this to even anything in the real world in terms of companies that run, in our day-to-day life, outside of cryptocurrency, and nothing even really holds a candle to it either out there. So it's very impressive.
Yeah, a lot of investments, like even if you look at stocks and stuff like that, a lot of the value that those, even though like a lot of stocks are good investments, like if you hold shares in them, etc., or properties, but a lot of that value that gets generated from those things, it doesn't go back to the actual investment, right? And that seems like the best place to actually put a lot of that value. Like in our system, we do have portions of it paying APY, which technically helps the investment as well. But we do have more of every single transaction that gets collected in fees. More of that value is constantly going to back the investment, because that's what really matters. Like I think Richard says in one of his early videos is people have done very, very well in the Coca-Cola stock, but they didn't get into the Coca-Cola stock because they're a lover of pop, because they're a lover of sodas. They got into the Coca-Cola stock to make money for the investment reason. So doesn't it make sense that a large portion of the value that gets generated from that investment should just go to keeping that investment up in price, to keep it as an appetizing investment for new users to keep coming in cycle after cycle, right? Every single cycle, there's going to be an inflow and an exflow of users. We know this happens. This has been happening with gold, with property through hundreds, thousands of years technically, but you can't really relate a lot of them back to actually taking all of that transactional currency in those investments back to the investment, making that investment a better investment, making it more scarce, making it have more liquidity, helping its utility grow. With pTGC, we add to the liquidity web, making the utility stronger and stronger and stronger, making it actually a more ideal investment as time goes on. We're still in the very early stages of this system, and it's already proven to work very well in a very unfavorable environment. If the environment switches in our favor, it can really start to showcase like what this investment actually can be, or what this protocol, this code can actually be. But then another thing is just time, right?
Yeah.
The appreciation of the blockchain in my opinion, kind of speeds up the time. But then the next feature is like, hey, success of the blockchain, and now let's just let time do its thing. Let's let fiat keep inflating, because inflating fiat makes assets like this that are scarce go up even more.
But can I just sorry, Zen, can I just stop you there and you can keep going? But the reason that's possible, and I've been thinking about this, is in cryptocurrency, every I guess founder that launches a coin, like a real coin, not just a pump fund coin, the ethos in crypto from almost inception to now, pretty much in 99.9% of assets, is that the founders and I guess the VCs that get in prior, it's all selfish investing and creation, whereas what you've created is selfless. So what I mean by that is they haven't, that most founders, developers, and launchers of a product, they hold an amount for them at the inception and they distribute that to the insiders initially. Whereas what you've created was launched grassroots, and what you've done is that it's a very selfless act, which is amazing, because there's almost none of it's very, very difficult to find this in crypto, because by nature humans are very selfish. So you want to try and hoard for yourself first, just by nature. But what you've created is something that is selfless, as a code. It can't be changed, and that code and the mechanics behind it, allows for, a selfless type of generation for all investors coming in at that point in time. So yeah, this is why, and I've really been thinking about this, and I'm not trying to blow smoke or anything, but this is why this product is doing and going to do extremely well into the future, because it is a selfless system where it just continues automatically to generate value for the holders that get in at the time they get in and into the future.
Yeah, where I was kind of selfish in the design was, for my own family, was digging for a product like this, right? And I felt that other people were also looking for a product like this. Other people needed this, but for it to actually become as large as it should be, right? Like an actual premier store value system on blockchain that is bigger than just an individual person, it had to be designed in that way, right? To where it's not actually dependent on me. Yeah, I love talking about pTGC. I love educating on, what it is and what I believe its design is for, what I believe it was built for. Is that going to evolve over time? 100%, right? I'm just one entity, and it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than just Banana. It's bigger than just you. That's what's so cool about it. And I feel like that's what's brought so much adoption to Bitcoin over time too, is it was bigger than just Satoshi. Satoshi's the person who came up with the idea, but now at this point, it's just code on the blockchain. It's now everyone, right? And that's what I think is cool about this product. The thing was, it's just my selfishness. I was looking for a product like this, couldn't find it, hunted through blockchains, hundreds of products, was finding things I loved about some products, but they were always just had something wrong, right? Like you said, it was either too many VCs involved, someone got greedy, a great idea just not executed. You could even launch a great idea on Ethereum last cycle, but the gas fees were too high for true DeFi last cycle. If you build on a blockchain that's already done 1,000x, you've actually missed out on the easiest X's. This is why I think we have such a unique opportunity here on PulseChain. With that does come risk, right? That's why we were talking about earlier, the risk to reward ratio. We are taking a risk being built on this very low priced, low used blockchain, but with this increasing just by double. If our user base goes from 10,000 users to 20,000 users, and each person brought in $10,000, I think that adds up to $100 million if I'm doing it right in my head. That sends PulseChain alone up 140x by just doubling our user base. That's just if every active user just got a friend in with $10,000. And I get that $10,000 is a lot for some people, but the risk to reward on the $10,000 that we have in pTGC, UFO, or Richard's assets in general is insane. People are willing to risk $10,000 on meme tokens on pump.fun or meme tokens on other chains. Here you have all the upside potential, but in my opinion, a lot less risk as far as like the community behind these protocols, Richard's community, our sub community, the fact that you have the proof that it's not going anywhere. It's been operating flawlessly for 2 years, but you still have all of the ability to turn $10,000 into $1 million, maybe 10 million, right? It's crazy to think about.
Then as well, you have to educate yourself and understand what this is, what this really is now, where PulseChain's at now, and then the amazing assets that are on it, and those diamonds in the rough. Yeah, absolutely. But people, so the audience that would be listening to this initially are the audience that primarily would be already in PulseChain, so they're really starting to become aware and understand the opportunity that arises here, because really, like, let's be honest, we're still at the bottom, at the very lows in terms of price performance for PulseChain. So if people don't really understand, like, it's hard to see the forest through the trees because of the fact that we're here every day, and it takes time for investments to really grow, and it's time that it's time that hurts investors if they're constantly looking at it every day, because you need to have patience, and you need things to be able to mature. So yeah, but it's so hard to try and reinforce the point, because we know how much of an opportunity there is, like you're saying, the upside versus the risk to the downside. You're not going to find that anywhere else in the world at this point in time, or maybe into the future ever, as you will right now on this chain, and especially in pTGC and UFO. You're just not going to find it anywhere else in the world. Can I just say as well, like, I'm so passionate about cryptocurrency, what it was really created for, that I created an initial slide deck that I've now onboarded family and friends and friends of friends into PulseChain, pTGC, and UFO, and just wanting to talk about the point of risk, because most people don't take enough risk. And you know what the problem with that is? The problem with that is if you don't take enough risk in life, then the riskiest thing to do is actually not taking risk in your lifetime. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example. So when we were born, it became risky. When we, went to, say, college, or decided to go into a certain profession, it became risky because you're narrowing yourself down to, a certain profession you want to do. When we get married, it's risky. When we go into a business with a friend, it's risky. It's risky to do all of these moves in life. But imagine if you didn't take any of these risks, and you sit in the corner and you played it safe and not contrarian all your life. Guess what you end up with at the end of the day? You actually end up with something where because you haven't taken any risks in life, you end up with in a position where the riskiest thing was not to take the risk, because you didn't get anywhere. And I myself personally am more of a risk taker to certain assets, but once I have conviction in them. And what I found was, when I was onboarding, majority of the people out there in the community, like just out there in general, aren't huge risk takers, and they keep it safe. So you have to really explain to people, well, I understand that and everything else, but if you don't take risks in life, then you're not going to get anywhere, because the people that became, you know, actually found individuals in communities, or really drove themselves to become something a lot higher than where they were, they took risks. They took risks, and some of them paid off, and a lot of them didn't. But the ones that do pay off, usually over your lifetime, end up trumping the 10 or the 15 or the 20 that don't. So the opportunity that we have at the lows of PulseChain, and if you really understand pTGC and UFO, that's a leverage on this ecosystem, this blockchain. And once this blockchain starts moving, which we know it's going to happen. I mean, Richard Hart didn't pull all of these funds and all of this time and all of his energy over the last 8 to 12 years for nothing. So we know it's coming. It's on the horizon. And if you know the mechanics of pTGC and UFO, that, you know, you don't even need buys and sells for pTGC and UFO to do a 100, 200x from this point. Once PulseChain starts running, if you can't see that and then invest even a small amount to make sure you've got a foot in the door, I don't know what else to say to you. So that's how that's how I've been able to onboard others.
I love that about taking a risk, and like the biggest risk is not taking any risks.
The biggest risk, Banana, it really is. Like, people don't understand that until it's too late. And then they're in their 50s or 60s and they thought, damn, why didn't I in my 20s and 30s and 40s, why didn't I just, even with 1%, 2%, 5% of my entire net worth, take a few risks in my life? Because that's where the rewards are. The rewards aren't when where you play it safe all your life, because you end up, you know, in a real safe box that doesn't allow you to extend, you know, your full net worth, self-worth, you know, and everything else to where your potential could be.
It goes right in line with something I'm a fan of, and that is making mistakes. I'm a perfectionist. I do not like to make mistakes, but I have a feeling that some of the most successful people in the world have made the most mistakes. Yeah, that was good, man. What are your thoughts on that, Xen? That thought?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Right? If you're not taking any risks financially, if you're not taking any risks when you're young, trying to find the right girl to be with no risk comes no reward.
Yeah.
So if you want to live your life with zero rewards, take no risks. But
here's the cheat, Zen. The risk to reward ratio at this point in time, and the window is not going to last too much longer. Because if you look at it again on a horizon of the next 5-10 years into these assets, now the window is closing very quickly, and once it's closed, it'll never open. Well, at this point, it'll never open again. But in the future, it'll still be advantageous for people to invest. It's just that they might have to throw in a bit more capital to get the same type of returns.
Sure. Yep. More capital.
Yeah.
Well, look at PulseChain today. It hasn't behaved like this since the 26th of August, if I got my numbers right.
Yeah.
About the 27th of August. And it's, you know, it's in for the last 2 weeks. Let's just call that price discovery for the last 2 weeks. I'm liking it, man. Well, Bitcoin is up 2%, Ethereum's up 6%, Pulse is up 6%, pTGC is down 3%, and UFO is up 5%.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone listening is looking for a discount on pTGC, it looks like someone's selling a decent chunk of their bag right now, and they might be done in a little bit. They might keep going, but there might be a nice discount after he's done.
Sure. Okay. The ratio is 8.5 right now. I mean, it was 10. It was 10 just a week ago.
Yeah, people are going to come, people are going to go. That's what happened throughout 10 years of ETH and Bitcoin. People get in early, they're up a few X's, they sell, new people come in. There's always this ebb and flow. When there are sell-offs with good sustainable assets, that's just opportunity for new people to take positions at new discounted prices. New discounted prices, risk to reward ratio, are less risk with more reward potential. So look at it always like that. And yeah, back on what you were saying about the risk to reward, the cool thing about risks is you can take risks that are in your favor, right? If you do enough like studying and you do enough due diligence as far as looking at the industry or looking at this risk that you're taking, you can actually make sure that it's very much in your favor. And I think that's what you're kind of just talking about. Where we are on PulseChain right now, the risk to reward is so much in your favor because of everything that we know from the past of not only blockchain, but also Richard. And then you look at where we are right now and you're like, okay, the low that we've been at is like a 50% dip. So that's kind of, risk side. It could go even lower than that. So on a $10,000 investment, you could be risking 5, 6K of it if all went really far down. But again, that reward side is possibly millions. So you're risking 10,000 bucks, 6, 7, 7,000 bucks for the potential to make millions. But you have to be willing to hold that long. That's the hardest thing about cryptocurrency is what we've found is if you jump, and you're not doing enough due diligence on studying each protocol and willing to have enough conviction to remain in that protocol, usually you shouldn't even be in it in the first place. That's what I kind of even used for myself. Like, can I be in this protocol for a decade? No? Well, why are you in it then? Right? You don't have conviction. You're just, kind of taking speculative moves at this point. And you can still take amazing speculative moves. You just need to have your patience and actually wait for those right products to pop up in front of you. And then, I think pTGC and UFO are these moves that are diamonds in the roughs, needle in the haystacks that don't come up too often. But when they do, these are the ones you want to hold on to. These are the ones that if you just let it do a 4X and it does 10 more X, are you going to be super disappointed on yourself that you just lost your position and you might have to buy back in 2 years later once it's proven to be one of the best store of value systems on PulseChain.
And that's the thing, Zen. It's like everyone, even myself at the moment, we're looking at it day to day, and we're looking at it week to week, and we're looking at it month to month. But you even need to try and take a step back from that and look at it long term, because that's where the true potential is in terms of the investment. And it's hard because the original investors in Ethereum, majority of them, they sold way too early, and the original positions for people positions in even Bitcoin, they would have sold too early, and then other like really successful layer ones like Binance Smart Chain, and the other Solana and the rest of it. So it is difficult, and it's difficult to convict others, provide them with the conviction without them doing their own research on top of that, because of the fact that the best times to get into assets is at the inception before the price action, takes off. Now, I'm not talking about pTGC and UFO because the price action's been amazing, but if you really understand the mechanics behind it, PulseChain hasn't. And when PulseChain takes off, it doesn't require any buys and sells for pTGC to do a leverage on the price action of PulseChain. And then you start really getting convicted, because the potential of PulseChain isn't just from this point a 2 or 3x. It's a 50 to 100x. It's a 200 to 500x. It's a 1000x over years. And then what? pTGC and UFO are a leverage on that without any buys and sells? Come on. And if you can't see that, then that's so yeah, that messaging, it's hard to get through to people when the price action hasn't started yet, because they want green candles to invest. And that's what I found, that I need to spend 90% more time trying to get someone convicted into something at the inception before the green candles come, as opposed to after the green candles, you only need to spend 10% of that energy to get them in. It's backwards, but it's just the way human mentality is.
You'll see that like Crypto 7 brought up, Hex is pumping right now over on Ethereum. It's up 25%. Let's see what the volume is right now. I just refreshed this probably an hour and a half ago, but let's see if it's increased on our pTGC EHEX pair. It was 2,897, and now it's 5,200. So it's gone up over $2,000 in volume. Yay!
Look at UFO instead. UFO has a massive LP with EHEX. I look at UFO's LP with EHEX like if EHEX has good adoption this cycle, if EHEX is not meant to be just dead and left for dead, and it is meant to be close to parity or a little below, which I think EHEX has a great potential of surviving this cycle because of ETH's gas prices going down. The gas prices made it really difficult to, have its utility there working. But now that those gas prices has been slashed, like it's a great protocol, right? I believe that a lot of people will see value in it. And if you also think about the marketing pieces, a friend of mine brought this up, the marketing pieces have PLS and HEX right on the front of them. A lot of people might just go straight to EHEX. They might not even make their way to PulseChain. They might just expose themselves to HEX on Ethereum. And there's such little liquidity there, it could pump up so quick. With the success of EHEX, UFO's price could just start moving up very rapidly and will generate tons of revenue off of it as well.
UFO has a $745,000 LP with EHEX, and that's all user-provided LP. And the volume, again, I refreshed both of these, pTGC and UFO, about an hour and a half ago. It was 21,500. We should make note of the total volume too, 79,000. Now let's refresh and see what. And I love this site, secretobank.com. It's so simple, yet it works. Whoa, 32,000. What was it? Whoa, look at our volume. What was it before? Was it like 29,000? It's up 100 grand in volume, UFO.
Yeah, that's, it's a pretty easy example to see how powerful the utility of pTGC and UFO are with liquidity webs with assets that are actually appreciating in value. We tend to kind of forget how powerful it is because we've had a very suppressed ecosystem here on PulseChain. But we have to remind ourselves, if we think PulseChain is going to be successful, if we actually think PulseChain is going to do the X's, a 20X, a 50X, a 100X, the journey to those numbers is going to generate tons of revenue. And then even once we're at those levels, we're going to generate, 50 to 100 times the amount of volume at those higher levels because market makers would need to move that much more value. Think about today. We have $120,000 of volume with UFO. I promise you 90% of that is probably arbitrage bots, if not more. So that's all of our utility operating with no human interaction needed. Our utility isn't based on human using it. It's based on the market just shifting up and down. Well, what happens if we were up 100x from these levels, right? Which is only 50x SAC price. That $100,000 would be $10 million in volume.
I love it when tokens go on a run. I'm starting to see it, Xen. When any one of these assets that we're bonded with just breaks away from all the rest, those ARB bots go crazy. And
it's amazing
we're,
as well.
we're being rewarded.
Yeah, and you were saying that the UFO has that large liquidity pool with EHEX, but the assets pTGC and UFO, I mean, they support each other. So UFO even burns pTGC. So off the back of that, what you're saying, the ARB bots, UFO is just going to drag up, its cousin with it, and vice versa. It happens in reverse as well when pTGC starts moving up. So yeah, it's fantastic the way the mechanics work and supporting each other, moving up.
Yep, perfect timing for the stream too.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add something as well. Like people might think that because I'm so convicted in pTGC and UFO, that I've been here from the inception, but actually that's not the case. So my first initial, I watched pTGC get launched, and I missed investing it. Well, I thought I missed investing it right at the outset, and because the asset flew so quickly, it was hard for me to try and find an entry point. Um, so I didn't actually invest, and I watched it from a sub 100K market cap when it launched, and didn't invest in that first run up. But when the asset sort of had its first large retracement, I think it went up to about a $10 or $12 million market cap, and then came all the way back down to, well, maybe sorry, it maybe more, maybe 20 or 30 mil, and it came all the way back down to about a $4 to an $8 million market cap, is when I pretty much made my entire entry point into pTGC. So what I guess the message I want to put out there is I didn't get in from the inception, and that's the reason is because you need to educate yourself on what you're trying to get into before you get into it. But that's the amazing thing about this product, is that it got launched at 100% uptime, 100% complete, and you have to educate yourself to get into it, because there's no roadmap, because it's all done, and it's just going to continue to work. UFO and pTGC work, the way that it does till the end of time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no late time to jump into the system. And I thought I'd missed the boat until it came back down. And then I got a sizable position in, because I had the conviction in it. And, and then from a $4 to $8 million market cap, it ran up to, 100 plus $1 million market cap. So I just want to say to everyone out there, if you're thinking that you've missed the boat, you most certainly haven't. Because if I had funds in other assets at the moment, and I wasn't in pTGC and UFO, I would 100% be rotating those in at this point, because what's coming next is going to be something, I don't think we've ever seen before, because of all of the factors at play with Richard Hart's core tokens about to, rocket to the upside.
Yeah, what I've noticed is the local lows of PulseChain. So when PLS kind of hits its low levels, wherever that local low is, PulseChain has continued to make lower lows in its local lows. pTGC has made higher lows in its local lows, but being able to scoop that local low has been the best opportunities to get in. Every single microcycle we have, you'll see a local low of PLS. PLS will kind of start making its move back up. pTGC in the past has kind of always made all-time highs in this event, and then it's came down with PLS making a new low. That's created the low for pTGC. That's actually been the best entry point to get into pTGC every single time, right? And we've kind of just experienced one of those a few months ago. I think we got down to a 50 mil market cap, and then we're now making our way back up. And it's not straight up, right? There's ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. But throughout all the ups and downs, we're distributing supply. So some users are getting out, new users are getting in. Our holder count is increasing. That's one thing I think a lot of people are underestimating about when green candles start to actually come to PulseChain. We have one of the largest communities of an alt system, an alt token, a sub ecosystem on PulseChain. We have a lot of people, I think, that are going to be putting their voices out there, educating and onboarding to a sustainable system, which is great for the success of PulseChain. If people come to PulseChain and they lose money, they're not going to tell their friends. They're not going to keep investing more. They're most likely going to leave and pretend they never even took the risk. But if they come in here and they actually get a reward off of that risk, next thing you know, they've told their friends, they told their brother, they DCA'd a little bit more off of their next paycheck, and the value will keep flowing in because of that investment being successful from the start. And you have to bring them to good products to do that. You can't just bring them to the slaughterhouse, let them get slaughtered, let a couple people take their money and think they're going to keep showing back up again.
Yeah, because we know how many pitfalls there are in crypto investing. And this is why now that you know, we're yelling from the rooftops to try and tell people that, listen, the opportunity, the risk to reward, and the way that these assets are built, you know, you're not going to find a risk to reward type entry point like this. It's going to be very difficult for you to find it in your lifetime. And I mean that. I really do mean that.
Yeah, and educating people on that, and like almost like you want to say convincing them, but you're like not trying to convince people to take any risky moves, but just like reminding them. That's why, you know, the last year and a half, pretty much, I haven't been really building anything as far as protocols go. After UFO was complete, I made it my number one priority to spend all my time focusing on educating users on this protocol, because I don't think there needs to be anything else added as far as tokens go. A lot of people like more tokens added because then they can degen and so on and so forth, but that's not my priority. My priority is, hey, I think that this asset is one of a kind. I don't think there's a lot of things better than it that exist in the whole entire world as far as a place that you can put value in. It's got safety, it's got security. You're not taking way too much of a risk to where like it's just gambling, throwing 10, 20 bucks at random meme tokens, hoping one of them hits. There is a community behind it, but it's a huge task to try to educate them and get them in before the green candles. After the green candles is easy, right?
It's
But
easy.
then their risk to reward is now getting less and less and less.
But here's the amazing thing, Zen, as well. They don't have to throw their life savings in, because the potential upside from this point, even in just the rest of, if we have a normal cycle, you know, is so astronomically huge. You know, they could throw, you know, they could throw $1,000 in, and they could turn that into $100,000 in the next 3 months, and you know that even that could be lowballing it. So I don't know. And what's the risk? The risk is that your $1,000 might drop to, I don't know, half, 50% over a period of time before it shoots up. Because
Alpha Voxer says in the chat, he says, folks are still sleeping on UFO. That's true. UFO gonna rip at some point.
yeah,
And then Josh T had a question. He says, why is pTGC down while PulseChain is going up? And who was it that answered that? Dennis Vitti answers, because somebody's selling pTGC. And I think they have been for quite a while. And you just addressed that a few minutes ago, right, Zen?
Yeah, not quite a while. Since we've been on stream, it looks like someone's taken like $150,000 out of pTGC. So that's why I was bringing it up. If someone was looking for a discount, looks like there's one on the chart right now, just from a user taking profit. pTGC is one of the biggest ecosystems on PulseChain. I think this is a great example that we're even able to absorb $150,000 worth of sells at the bottom of PulseChain with only a 5% retracement on the chart from zero is pretty amazing, right? The fact that we're able to change lives in that manner at the beginning of the protocol is different than anything really else on PulseChain, in my opinion. So if anyone is looking for a discount, looks like there was one just created by a user taking profits. Could he sell more? 100%. We have no idea, but he can never sell a token twice. Once he sells his bag, or if he stops here, well, those tokens are now distributed to other holders. Those holders now got a nice discount. Those holders might tell a friend now. Those holders might tell a few friends. So we're seeing the ecosystem expand and ebb and flow just naturally, like we've seen for 2 years.
Yeah, and can I just add to that as well? Like you know, we're not here to tell people when to buy and when to sell. You know, everyone's free to do what they want. It's a free market. All I can say is that the people that, like this individual that is selling at the moment, again, I'll go back to, he's not seeing the forest through the trees. Everyone has their own reasons, though. People have reasons why they have to sell. It might be real world pressures, or it could be the fact that they just want to degen to another coin. You know, it's up to them. But all I can say is that when they sell positions like this, this quickly, the system is actually that strong that you'll see in the next 24 hours, it just rebounds. It absorbs it, it takes it, it rebounds, and then it's like a blimp on the chart that you can't even see over a week. It just bounces straight back. So I'm saying, let them sell if they need to sell. It gives the opportunity for others to get in, and just don't be so short-minded. Don't look at the chart on the hour, on the day, even on the week. Like try and make sure you have a position that is staked, that is locked as well. It'll save you from yourself, because what Xen has created here and Banana is assisting, like they've taken the ethos of what Richard Hart believes in, and then they have secured that with even greater, stronger foundations.
I like what Khaled on crypto has been saying a couple of times, several times on his previous recent streams. He says, don't look at the price of an asset you're holding, but look at the value. Right? People sell based on the price when
Absolutely.
they should be looking at the value of the asset and perhaps holding because the asset is valuable. Like in the case of pTGC, highly valuable asset. I'm not looking at the price, looking to sell. That's for certain. But yeah,
And
like you said,
people won't realize, like you'll only realize this if you were part of the asset, over the last year. But once these two assets start running, the amount of bot generation that the system creates and the amount of token reflections you're going to get back into your wallet is going to increase significantly. Like I'm talking like a 10, 20x from here in terms of your APY coming back into your wallet from just holding the asset, then staking the asset, then on top of that, locking the asset as well. Let those bots do their thing.
Your mic's muted, Banana.
So this gentleman is selling. He's up 300x, is what somebody Heat Cool says in the chat. So great job, dude. And like you said, CoonDawg, he's just offering cheaper coins for people that want to enhance their positions or get new positions.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is, like, you kind of want these people to make sure, because obviously you're selling for a reason, and you don't want that reason to be, when we're running up another 50 or 100x. You kind of want that to be happening now anyway, because the system's just going to absorb it, and in 24 hours you're going to see the chart bounce straight back.
Yep, that's very typical for pTGC to respond like that, because there are people who
other token asset, if they got this type of sell pressure right now, they would. It's actually very difficult for the chart to recover in terms of price action in the time frame that what these two assets do. And I've been watching this very closely over the last 6 to 12 months. Very closely.
Zen, do you want to talk about what we're chatting about just before the stream?
Yeah, this kind of leads into why I think, the DAO is so important with pTGC. Is a lot of tokens, ecosystems can't last multi-cycle because they're designed based on the previous or the current cycle they're in. But as we go further on in crypto, as cycles past, we have to assume that the environment is always going to evolve. It's always going to adjust. It's never going to be the exact same as the previous. Narratives change, tokens change, themes change. Everything's going to evolve as technology evolves, as AI evolves, everything. So with the DAO, it gives us a decentralized and automated way to make adjustments and maneuver with the ever evolving ecosystem around us, which we know it is, but in a way that's not dependent on a single entity making those moves. So that's what's important to me, is you need something that's, I believe, you don't need it, but I believe for very, very long-term systems that could actually last longer than a person's life. You need things like this in play, decentralized automated systems that can evolve with the industry around it. One thing I was paying attention to this cycle that I think is a little different as last cycle is last year or last cycle's bull run, when the alt season came, there was a very, very nice alt season, right? A lot of the big tokens got a ton of the attention, the big alt tokens, and then the group underneath it, the like 10 million, 5 million market cap tokens had a nice run too. But I do think this cycle is going to be a lot different. I think we'll see the alt token market cap be higher, but I don't think we'll see a lot of those 5-10 million market cap tokens make a massive run like we did last cycle, because it increased the quantity of tokens launched and the atmosphere that the tokens launch in by the 100-fold. With the ability of anyone at any time to launch a token and the new narrative of this cycle of tokens only lasting a few days, I think a lot of the alt token volume and value is going to end up in these dead assets and also the large assets that are alt tokens. So I think pTGC has done very well and UFO has done well to participate or to put themselves in the large asset category, because there's going to be a group of investors that come in who don't want to take much risk, but want the ability to do alts on top of it, or X's on top of Ethereum and Solana and BNB, like the big movers that have already done all their X's. They want to take a little bit more risk than that, but they're not willing to go play the 3-day game. There's people like me who are quite old, you know, I say like Banana, like CoonDawg, who are for the most part busy with life, kids, family, and they can't just sit behind the computer and trade charts every 2 hours. They want to take a little bit of a risk to get that reward, but not a crazy amount to where they're just playing the casino. There is people that just want to play the casino. Last cycle, I think a lot of people made money in that range of like those mid-sized micro caps, not like the dead ones that are at 100K, but that 5 mil range. I think a lot of those shot up to like 200 mil with the bull market when money started flowing. I think it's going to be a little bit different this time, because last cycle, not anyone at any time could launch a project. There was a lot more of a cap on the DeFi projects or the meme tokens that launched because it wasn't at everyone's fingertips. This cycle, literally a brand new person could come into crypto, and within a couple days, they can actually launch their own token based on their own brand and everything. I think it's going to change the environment a little bit. I think we're going to see alt token market cap break into a new all-time high. I think we're just right there. But you're not going to see it on as many alt tokens because a lot of that is spread amongst way more supply. We're getting completely diluted, and with that supply of tokens increasing by the 100-fold, the only way we could keep up with that is by demand increasing by the 100-fold, which is just not the case. Demand is not increasing by the 100-fold right now. So I think we have to be a little bit more particular about what good alt tokens are going to run hard this cycle. I do believe pTGC and UFO are going to be able to get that mind share, be able to do that with its leverage with PulseChain. But if we didn't have all these key features like buy and burns, utility that generates revenue not only on human interaction but mechanical interaction, the fact that we're on an undervalued blockchain, the fact that it's completely automated, we can adjust, like all the features that kind of check the boxes for us, we have to remind ourselves, majority of alt tokens don't check anywhere near that many boxes. They don't function automatically, they don't generate revenue. So it's going to be very, very difficult for a lot of those assets to survive because the supply of competition is just getting larger and larger and larger. Just be careful out there, guys. That's really it. I just was more bringing up that this cycle is different than last. The cycle before that was different than the last. The next cycle we're running into will be different than the cycle this time. pTGC and UFO have ways to counteract the ever evolving. Most tokens do not. And, you know, we're going to do what we can to obviously adjust and evolve with the times to keep ourselves relevant, and just kind of keep in mind that, I think everyone knows this cycle is a lot different than last cycle. ETH hasn't even really broken all-time highs yet. Bitcoin's been above all-time highs for like 8 months now. So
yeah, Zen, very good point, because the fact that there's such a dilution in the amount of assets now in cryptocurrency, and the fact that humans and the markets learn and they adapt and they evolve, so there's never an exact repeat of previous cycle. Now you're going to have investors, hovering around, and the activity is going to start getting drawn like magnets towards the assets that are actually that have real understanding, backing, community, and all the rest of it, as opposed to 99.9% of the crap that is out there that is still getting launched every day out there in cryptocurrency. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be very hard to find those runners that do 100x, 200x that are only at a $1 to $10 million market cap that run into the billions, as opposed to the assets, and they don't have that, as opposed to the assets that really have solid foundations behind them.
yeah, 100%. I think, and leaning on that like smaller market cap numbers, because a lot of people, I think, on PulseChain sometimes look at pTGC as being a higher market cap, and they don't fully understand the X multiplier effect and how the amount of X's we can still do from this point. The fact that there is still zero new users really on PulseChain compared to when PulseChain launched. We have so much upside potential in pTGC. It's insane. But even if you have a feeling that you're looking for something a little bit lower of market cap, not that market cap means anything for price appreciation, it's just some people think it does. And Rich literally just tweeted about this. You have UFO, which is also part of the same ecosystem, same community, with great utility. It's a brand new idea, never been done before, a farm built on top of a token where we're still utilizing the same mechanic that we've proven to be highly successful, but it is a cheaper market cap. There is less holders holding the asset. I do think those less holders will equal less sell pressure in the future. So if we get equal amount of demand to UFO as we get pTGC, I do think there'll be a very nice price appreciation to this asset that's currently being overlooked at the moment. It's super powerful. You don't find $25 million assets with $10 million in liquidity in crypto. And that liquidity of $10 million with just a 10x of PulseChain could be $100 million. Like it truly is an asset that a lot of people have been looking for. And a lot of people felt like they missed the boat on pTGC, and they had the opportunity again with UFO. A lot of them even missed it again, thinking like, oh, I wanted it at a 100K market cap and it's at a 2 mil market cap, darn it. And it's just like, hey guys, market cap doesn't mean anything. What matters is the price appreciation, how many people own it today, by how many people are going to own it in the future, and its bonded liquidity. Is it paired with assets that are going to do crazy amounts of X's this cycle, and what's its utility? If you're kind of on the sidelines and you are looking for cheaper assets, I think UFO is obviously cheaper as far as market cap and price goes too.
Yeah. And can I just say, the cryptocurrency is on the cutting edge of, sort of innovation. And then also on top of that, like leading the trends and everything. We were talking about institutional wealth coming in last cycle, like it was going to happen. So that was the cryptocurrency whole industry being too far ahead of time. So it's actually happening this cycle. And so with these assets, sorry guys, with these assets of, PulseChain and the sub-ecosystem assets like these, you will get institutions starting to really take a notice of them. And it may not be this cycle, or maybe towards the end of this cycle, but you'll have the larger investors start investing, and then you'll even start getting the attention of the institutions into these type of assets because they are so foundationally strong. And it will happen eventually.
Indeed. Zen, you're muted.
Yeah, I wasn't saying anything. I agree. I think it's a really good point. You know, if depending on what Richard has in store, we have no idea what connections he has, who he's connected with over the last 4 years, what connections he had before that maybe are currently being, you know, behind closed doors because they want to use those things as marketing at the right moments. We really don't know what's in store for this cycle, but we do know that it's a great product. Mathematically, he has a lot of stuff figured out that other blockchains haven't figured out to date. I think some great stuff is coming, and I do think maybe not this cycle. You know, like we said, we don't know what's happening, but if we do get the success we believe we will have with adoption, mathematically, I think it is better designed than a lot of other things out there for price appreciation. And people care about price appreciation. They're getting into Bitcoin, they're getting into Ethereum because of the price appreciation they've had, the self-custody and the security that they have while holding those assets, the liquidity. If we can cover all those bases, this is how I've always looked at pTGC. Let's cover all the bases of what the big money wants, the real investors. Don't really care too much about the people that only are going to throw in $500 who's going to sell on a 2x and leave and go chase the next thing. I'm happy to have them in. I'm happy to educate them. But really what the goal is to be a place to where large whales can actually come and store value and put that value to work in a system that's trustless and actually has liquidity to absorb them without raising the prices too much. They can keep self-custody of their assets. They can actually be in the system for multiple cycles, if not forever. Maybe if crypto gets the adoption we believe, it one day could be treated like stocks and investments, where after they die, they just get passed on down to the next generation. You know, this is the goal of pTGC and UFO. It's not something that's just been designed for this cycle. It's been strategically planned out to be a multi-cycle system that has a lot of the features I know big players are looking for. And I believe Richard took these same steps in the design of his product. You don't design an entire blockchain just for small players to come play. You also want the biggest players in the world to come play as well.
And then real assets, real companies, real, communities and organizations that make a difference in the world. They don't start from zero and get to 100 straight away. It takes real building, grassroots foundations. And that's what these assets have. So you're not going to get institutions with tens of millions of dollars wanting to throw their funds in to assets like this straight away. These assets need to prove themselves. But what you will get is a real building of investors coming in with more and more capital, which will relate to then the institutions eventually taking notice and wanting to put a percentage of their overall business portfolio into assets like this as a store of value for their own sort of diversification of the companies. So because
look at what companies have been fully based around nowadays. MicroStrategy's whole entire business thesis is let's take in investor money and put it in Bitcoin. Like that's literally the business model.
That's all it is. Crazy. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's anyway, when the world really finds out about how good an asset PulseChain is as a layer one, and then on top of that, the real assets that are being built on top of PulseChain that hold the value there, and continue to grow in the right manner, not in a pump and dump manner. It's gonna be something really to witness over the years. So I'm here for the long run, and I hope many others really see the advantages of making sure that they have a strategy that rewards them in the short term and also rewards them in the long term as well. Because the worst thing you want to do, like the initial investors I'll take back again in Ethereum at 50 cents is drop your whole bag when it gets to $10 and then watch the asset run up to over $5,000 a token. And can I just say, looking at the price action right now, Ethereum is breaking out. It looks like it's really pushing up hard currently. So I really do believe that once Ethereum gets into the, a past all-time highs, it gets into the true 5,000 range, pushing to the 6,000, you're really going to start seeing some serious movement on PulseChain and then everything else.
Yeah, if you look at when Hex started to move, it wasn't eHex. It was not until Ethereum broke decently far past its previous all-time high last cycle. Richard was so successful last cycle as far as marketing and price appreciation of Hex. He did amazing with it. So why would we ever think he changed that plan too much? Last time he specifically waited for ETH to break far into all-time highs, not like just tap it. Like it was a good 10, 15% pass. And when ETH passed its all-time highs by a decent amount, you just saw Hex starting to go up, go up, go up, go up. And it just started stepping. And let's be honest, he got the attention of all of crypto and retail as well. I honestly think he's just doing the exact same playbook with other stuff added on.
Yeah, and if you logically think about it, you kind of, if you look at that and the price appreciation of Ethereum from last cycle to this cycle, everything has taken a lot longer this cycle. So it's safe to assume that Ethereum will still have its run. It's just taking longer to get there. And probably there are powers at play that have suppressed the price and actually wanted to accumulate at lower entry points, which, I'm sure all of us agree that that is happening in the background. But it will play out, and Ethereum will shoot up to, and it's anyone's guess, $6, $8, $10, $12, $20,000 a coin this cycle. But when it does really start pushing into those all-time highs properly, yeah, Richard Hart's going to time this to perfection. And he's very good at taking a product that is great and making it amazing. And we know that because he's not scared to, build on others' success and make it even greater of his own. And what isn't broke, just don't fix it. And it worked last cycle, Xen. I agree with you. He wants to take what he did last cycle and he wants to deliver it this cycle with more grunt. And it's timing. Timing is everything in crypto.
Yep, like time in the market. Not timing. Well, you got to time the market sometimes too. We spend some time in the market.
Yeah, totally. Banana. It's funny.
Yeah. Hey, Banana, if there's anything else that you want to get to, let's get to it, because I do have a few notaries scheduled for 24 minutes from now that I obviously put earlier than this, but I thought we were starting an hour earlier. So I just want to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah, and sorry, gents, I thought we were jumping on in 24 hours from now, so I kind of.
That was my fault on both those accounts. We'll fix it next time.
It's the whole Australians. We're backwards here. It's just, I'm not going to hide it. We just backwards.
It's all right. It's totally good. Yeah, I'm good. I mean, if there's nothing else that you guys think we need to cover, we'll be on Spaces tomorrow at 7 a.m. Pacific. And you can find the Spaces in the Twitter or in the Telegram. And then what else? Oh, go vote at PLSfolio.com. UFO lost its number 3 and it's down in the number 4, so it's in the second row now. So UFO needs some more votes, and pTGC is going to need more votes too, because the number 3 contender now is getting more votes than UFO and pTGC per day on average. It's averaging more votes. So, but my suspicion is that as price goes up, hopefully in the next few days, weeks, more users are going to start becoming active in the Grays ecosystem, and they're going to be exposed to that. Go vote at plsfolio.com. So I think we'll get a lot more votes as the number goes up. So I'm not dismayed, but go vote. PLS Folio.
Yeah, good on you, Banana. Everyone go vote. That should be right up the top.
Yeah. All right. There's your plug in the chat. You can do it twice a day from any what do you call it, IP address. So there you have it, guys. Anything else?
No, I think that's good. Thanks for coming on, CoonDawg. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great to chat with the two of you, and I'm very grateful that we're all here at this point in time. Anyone who's listening to this, just if you haven't done your research, just get your head stuck into this ecosystem and pTGC and UFO over the next week. And if you build that conviction, just buy like crazy, because what's coming is going to be one heck of a wave. That's all I can say.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're shutting it down. Thanks for showing up, guys. It was a pleasure to meet you, CoonDawg.
Yeah, absolutely. You too. Banana, Xen. Till next
See you
time.
guys.
See ya.